If you are a person of color, chances are you've had to suffer through an attack or two. Maybe it was mentally, maybe it was verbally, maybe it was physically. Or maybe someone stole art from one of your artists, and instead of admitting that, they sent someone to heckle your art gallery. Before we dive into that, I do want to talk a bit about respectability politics, because I think in the face of an attack, these politics of respectability actually prolong the suffering for marginalized groups. Respectability politics, or the politics of respectability, is a term coined by Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham in 1993 in her book, Righteous Discontent, The Women's Movement in the Black Baptist Church. It's a belief that's been around for a long time. If you articulate, dress better, suppress your anger, and assimilate with the majority, you'll be treated better. How many times have you found yourself on the other end of a microaggression? And instead of being allowed to be rightfully upset, you have to first be respectful. Even while defending yourself, you have to maintain a certain amount of level-headedness, because God forbid you get angry and call someone out. No. Because then it becomes your fault. Now, you're the one taking things too far, or you are the one who misunderstood. If you're like me, you probably call your partner or your friends and you're like, am I crazy, or is this thing not okay? There lies the problem with respectability politics. It oftentimes lets the other person off the hook. Unless you're like Nina, who you'll hear from in a second. For the past couple of months, she has been knee-deep in an attack that has manifested in nearly every area of her life. Imagine someone being so obsessed with the work you're doing for people of color that they go to any lengths to shut you down. What you're about to hear is only part of the story. You can hear the full unedited version at afeni.co/womenfolk. That's afeni.co/womenfolk. If you like this show, visit afeni.co to keep up and hear more podcasts like this one. As always, everything you need to know is down in the show notes.
My name is Yanina Angelini Arismendi, and I am a Uruguayan born Fredericksburg raised artist living in the United States. I moved here when I was 11, about 17 years ago. I've been living here as an immigrant. And for the past few years, I have been an artist and an activist and an advocate for other artists of color in my town through my gallery and safe space called Art Mart.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Art Mart?
For a few years now, we've had Art Mart, and our space is a pro-black, pro-brown unity. We make sure that it's a safe space in regards to who comes into the shop. We do a lot of everything. We do music shows and art shows, as well as community engagement like classes and workshops. We do a lot of things to reach out and give back, like Food Not Bombs. We have a Food is Free project, Little Planter, and dreams to grow it to more to like community garden type of feel. And so we're young, we're getting our stuff together, we're still renovating, and we just started Art Mart because when I decided that I wanted to do art, I had friends in DC, and they introduced me to a lot of the art community, and it was wonderful because it was other people of color, and it was very engaging and very it was safe, people were very encouraging, and I was taught a lot. And so I always hated that wasn't the case here in Fredericksburg. When I started making art, I entered in a bunch of shows, never got selected. It just seemed like, not bashing on any of the art, because I love all art. I really do. But I feel like more contemporary, more political, more just from a different perspective was just not very welcome yet. Not as much. And so I thought, when we got this space, I thought, I could make this about myself and make it my workshop, have my art shows and do my thing, or we can be intentional and create a place where we can curate people of color's artwork, we can help new artists grow, just have a place where feminists and women and trans people and queer people can feel safe, that isn't a bar setting or anything like that. just a space where I would feel safe at. That's the idea, you know, like as someone that has like lots of intersections in her life, I just thought that would be something that other people needed here as well. And so we started Art Mart.
So you mentioned to me that you and your team are pretty selective when it comes to deciding what goes into the space.
Yes, and we have been very, very intentional from the get-go, the way that we would be handling the art. So like no cultural appropriation allowed. This is a space for people of color to show their work safely without the danger of being plagiarized, anything like that.
Okay, so we were originally going to talk more about Art Mart and the work that you're doing there, but something happened to you the other day at your gallery. Do you mind telling that story?
So this is a really long story, and I'm not gonna bore you with like fine details. I just kind of want to give you the spark notes because I feel like this story has taken a life of its own. It's so steeped in whiteness at this point that all of the real issues have been like thrown to the curb. We went as Art Mart, we invited a lot of artists to come out to this public art event that was unrelated to us. It's like a chalk festival. During this chalk festival, we had one of our artists that we represent. He's a Mexica person. He's, you know, native to these lands, and so he paints a lot of, and he does graffiti art, like street art. So he paints a lot of incredible landscapes that are like surreal in nature, but they touched themes of the conquest and like colonization and stuff like that. So we encouraged him to come and show his street art. So he came and he did this amazing piece of like a sunset with two moons and a ship in the distance. It's a beautiful piece. And he also brought all of these other pieces that kind of look like that in the collection that he did with spray paint, because he's so talented and he was so nervous. He wanted to show his street art as well as dominating a new media. He made this amazing piece. So a few weeks later, I get a usual email from an artist in town. I get them a lot, and people send me like pictures and they're like, is this cultural appropriation? For the most part, it's not. We had just started Art Mart. We were not gonna try to like be on everybody's face about what they're doing, but we get this one screen cap, and it's a picture, and it's so familiar because I've seen it for years. I know this artist for years, and I recognize the style right away, and it is the piece that he made at that street art festival. And it was taken and it was made, and then on top of the image that was kind of plagiarized from David, this woman puts a big it's so hard to describe it. It looks like a very bastardized version of what white people think that Indians used to look like. I mean, like bone in the head kind of deal. I asked a bunch of other artists that are, you know, native to these Americas, because as someone from South America, I can't speak over people. I send these screen caps to people that I trust, people that have been in the art field for years, you know, and I'm like, what do you think of this? And this is like, yeah, you know, this is red face and this is awful. And I'm like, okay, so what should we do about it? So we take down the name of the artist and we decide that she's not welcome in our shop. She's the second person at this point that we banned. We banned the first guy because he went on a homophobic, transphobic, racist, anti-immigrant, anti-women tirade at me, and I had to physically remove him from my house. And so we had already dealt with like racist things in the past, and so on Tuesday we have a Black History Month special for a poetry slam reading that we do. We don't do it, we host it, and it was special, so everyone was required to read a poem written by an African American. I was asked to read Power by Audre Lorde. I love that poem so much, and of course I love Audre so much. I read the poem, there was a new guy in. He came in midway. He was pretty aloof, pretty quiet. I didn't think anything of it. Our shop looks like a mess right now because we're still renovating, and soundproofing. So like I just, didn't think anything of it. As soon as I'm done reading, he screams, "That's counterproductive!" What? How are you gonna fight racism by raping a white woman? And we're like, whoa, like back up. Like this guy completely misinterpreted the whole point of the poem was just missed. So one of my sisters, she's, one of like the raddest black feminists I know, she just like, kind of sets him in his place. Like, have you read this author before? Do you know the whole body of work behind this? Do you know what she's trying to say? Like, she's just educating him. And he starts screaming at her. He gets hostile, like just going off on her. And so like I jumped up because that's me. That's how I am. Like I just jumped up and I'm like, okay, see, like what you're not about to do is like come into the safe space, talk about Audrey like that when you don't know context, and when you're given like education from a black femme, you're gonna act like this. Like this is not, I don't remember. I was so nervous and I was so angry and I had my fists clenched and my eyes shut, and I'm just trying to be very like deliberate with my speech. Like, you're not going to talk to her this way. You're not going to talk about something that you don't know this way. And then when you're like being like corrected, you do this. So he screams at me. He screams at me to look him in the eye when I'm talking to him because I'm hella disrespectful. And so like, and I'm still on like trying to be like correct mode. So I'm like, well, I have anxiety. And then I'm like, you know what? Like, fuck that. Get the fuck out of my shop. So my husband jumps up because like he's amazing at letting me be without like smothering me and like male like protectiveness. So like as soon as I'm like, oh fuck no, you're not gonna talk to me like that, he jumps up and he's like, yeah, you get the fuck out of my shop. And he's just like literally clutching his chest like, oh, y'all so rude. Oh, this is awful. And I'm like, and so everyone at this point is laughing, but I'm not, because Justin's literally like advancing on him so that he can be gone through the door, and he's not budging. He's not budging at all. And I'm just like, he's not budging. So Justin's like, so I grabbed Justin and I kind of pulled him back a little bit. And so I told you the shop looks like an antique shop right now because we're renovating and we're like selling off all of this estate. So I have an antique sword right by the door for some chance. So I grab it and I open it up just a bit and I flash it and I'm like, you're gonna get the fuck out of my shop. And so this guy just like fumbles around for his cell phone trying to like, oh, word? Oh, that's assault. Like, I'm like, okay, so Justin pushed him out and I slammed the door and he's like, I'm calling the police. I'm like, call the police. And you know what? Go ahead and leave us a negative review on our Art Mart Facebook page too. How about that? And like, I just like slammed the door and he left. We finished the poetry slam. It was actually super successful. There were so many people and so many good poems. It was really great after he left. So we get a knock at the door at the last poem, and it's the police. And the police are here because they heard that there is a wild woman with a sword threatening people. And so we talked to them, and it turns out that one of the officers was someone that knows me, just like the community leader that I am here, like someone that is always here to help. I explained to them that I felt threatened. Like he came in negative, but I didn't even think about it, and he was just like, his hostility, his misogynoir was just so powerful, and like I couldn't handle it, and he's not gonna disrespect me on top of that way. Like, he needed to go, I needed him to go, and it's my right to try to get him out. They explained to us, how to do this right. We're getting camera systems and security for the show, so all is well. in that regard. And we also, we're just working with the law at this point because it's damn near a hate crime, and it's all fueled by white violence, by white nonsense, by unchecked privilege. I just spent the past 2 days just creating and trying to self-care and take time off.
What has been the most helpful way to self-care during this time?
Luckily, Justin has a great job, first of all, so that gives me the privilege to be a stay-at-home mom. So I'm able to just take all my day to try to drag myself out of bed because, I have like all sorts of health problems, especially in the morning. Like for me, waking up is like a 2-hour process. But after that, I cook meals, I clean the house, we make art or we write. And when Justin's here, we cuddle and we watch either cartoons with the kids or like sitcoms together. And, we really take care of each other. Sex has been a really like important part of like self-caring lately. Just, being able to like be with your partner physically is really important. And throughout all this, the best part about all this is that in a way, this is kind of what I asked for. I wanted this to be exposed, for what it is, for the racist shit that it is. So I'm willing to go through this, just so that it's exposed and talked about, because the aftermath has left with so many artists reaching up to me and asking me, how can I do better? Like, what can I do better? Just, white friends, same thing. Most of like the people that have supported me through this weekend, liking and sharing and like encouraging me on my posts have been like white allies. So like, I definitely feel like that has brought people closer together in a lot of ways, really realizing how important art mart is for this community. And I'm not going to back down from protecting it at all costs, because it's like, it's our space, and so there's that. And then on top of that, we have been laughing so hard, just Justin and I making these memes, sending them to Michelle back and forth. It's been so fun, like so much like funny, just I don't know, it's like such a survival mechanism to make light of a situation that could really be dangerous. But like, we have no other alternative. Like, I was not willing to be weak about this, like not weak in the sense that, weakness, but just like to show them that like they really like got to me. Like last Down with Art Mart, like gave me seizures, and I was like open and I said, I had seizures over this. I have had anxiety attacks over this. Like, this really has affected my health. But they came in and they try to taste my gangster, and I'm not gonna let them. I'm gonna pull a sword. I'm gonna like defend myself and in my space, and I'm gonna call you out. If I have to be afraid doing it, like doing it. I think that's like a quote that I saw somewhere. But if I'm gonna be afraid of doing it, I'm gonna do it afraid, because there's no other option. After doing this, hopefully people will realize you don't like art mart, you better stay in your lane. If you have something to say, you better come correct, and you better be ready to like receive what I'm gonna dish out. These people around here that don't want to acknowledge that cultural appropriation like is a problem. These white folks that think that they're entitled to just taking, any like bit of culture and bastardizing it for profit or for just to escape their own reality instead of facing themselves and, like self-criticizing and just becoming, better allies, because that's important, instead of doing that, like doing this fuck shit that this girl tried to pull. And so hopefully it'll get resolved this week, and we'll get our apology, and it probably won't be like a heartfelt one. It feels like a, I'm twisting your arm into it kind of one. But I just want to like squash this beef so we can move forward, because we have so much to like shine about this year. This is a story that's important because it teaches you that no matter where you are in your career as a person of color, If you go against the grain, if you go against whiteness, they will grill you and they will test you and they will try to break you. I never met anyone that broke me for too long.
If you'd like to hear more of this story, you can hear the full version at afeni.co/womenfolk. That's AFENI.co/womenfolk.